In some ways, it feels like Hasbro has gone out of its way to flush D&D down the toilet. But that doesn't mean that there's no hope for your party. Hey there, adventurers. My name is Judd, and this is Short Rest Studios, where we believe fun builds community. If you dig the content on this channel, I hope you'll consider joining the Adventurers Guild at patreon.com/shortreststudios or by hitting the join button right under this video. I don't hate D&D. I still have a blast running a 5e game every other week, but we've seen a lot of negative in the D&D hobby over the last few years. I'm not one to dwell on that, but it's a good idea to look at why. So that's what I want to talk about today. Why does Hasbro seem to be ruining the game we love? And stick around to the end, because more importantly, I want to talk about the solution for us. I read an article recently about we'll call it platform decay of the internet. I won't use the word the article uses. I want to keep it as family friendly as possible around here. But I'll drop a link to the article and a book by the journalist who coined the term in the description. I'm using a similar structure here because the flushing of D&D in 3 stages, it fits perfectly. In stage 1, it was new and enticing. Now, we could go all the way back to D&D's origins here. We can actually see this whole cycle, I think, in the TSR era, but there was also a lot about those days that was different. Really, for our purposes today, stage 1 begins with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. Wizards of the Coast bought TSR in 1997, saving the company, saving D&D, and probably saving our hobby. And then in 1999, Hasbro bought Wizards. In 2000, they published 3rd edition, introducing the D20 system and winning multiple awards. It also created the original open game license, giving third-party publishers pretty generous permission to create their own D&D compatible content. The game wasn't perfect, but the industry, players, and DMs all loved it. 3.5 was a big improvement. 4E is generally considered a misstep, but it still has tons of fans. I'm looking at you, Matt Colville. Then D&D 5e came along in 2014, and again, we loved it. All this time, in my opinion, was stage 1. I think it's hard to remember now for a lot of us that WotC taking over ownership was a good thing for everyone involved back then. They saved a company, they saved jobs, they gave artists the rights to their own works, which TSR never had before. And they saved Dungeons and Dragons. And it's because Peter Adkinson, founder and then CEO of Wizards of the Coast, loved D&D. That purchase breathed new life into the game, giving it a chance to start over. In stage 1, a web platform, a company, a brand like D&D is alive with energy. It's not so concerned about making profits as it is with making something good for customers. In the case of, say, Facebook, in the early days, that meant giving users a feed that showed them stuff they wanted to see instead of stuff advertisers wanted to show them, which is what then social media giant MySpace was doing. In stage 1, WotC was excited to give new life to D&D. The designers loved the game and wanted to make it the best it could be. Sure, they wanted people to buy it and play it, and they did that by creating something that was good for us, not just for the bottom line. But then something happened. Actually, a couple things. The daddy of actual play internet shows, Critical Role, exploded onto the scene, showing skilled performers having a blast playing D&D. And possibly more significantly, Stranger Things Season 1 premiered on Netflix. That show, of course, was a juggernaut. It's a great show. I still love it. And the 80s nostalgia was a huge factor in its initial success. And part of that nostalgia was kids playing Dungeons and Dragons in their basement. All that happened within the first few years of 5e, and the game exploded. D&D became more popular than it had ever been. Now, Hasbro and WotC had all those customers they've been trying to entice. Do me a favor, drop me a comment and let me know what you think about the current and future state of Dungeons and Dragons. It's time for stage 2. Let's look at our Facebook example again. Facebook achieves scale, becomes the biggest social media platform in the world, so they stop trying to entice users and they start being good to businesses instead. They changed our feeds and started using the data they had on us to target ads, and that was just part of it. For D&D, stage 2 starts when we begin to see Wizards focusing more on benefiting their parent company Hasbro than on benefiting the TTRPG community. Now look, I get that businesses need to make money, but the best businesses make money by doing right by their customers. This shift was probably happening in the background for a long time, but I think the public beginning was the leak of OGL 1.1 in 2022. Remember, the original OGL, released under 3rd edition, was pretty generous, and it was actually instrumental in creating the vibrant hobby we have now. Companies like Paizo and Cobalt Press may not even exist without the original OGL. But 1.1, if you don't remember or weren't around, was set to change all that. It would have given WotC rights to republish and sell any D&D compatible content published by a third party. It would conceivably have given them rights to sell your homebrew content, and it would have deauthorized the previous license. Fans, publishers, and YouTubers were irate. It even got coverage in national news. Eventually, they backed down, releasing a more generous license, but a lot of goodwill was destroyed. Why? Because the whole point seemed to be maximizing profits by crushing third-party publishers. OGL 1.1 would have destroyed Paizo, so they rebuilt Pathfinder and created their own license. Other creators followed suit. Games like Shadow Dark were almost killed before they started. Then there was the time Wizards sent the Pinkertons after a YouTuber who was sold some unreleased Magic the Gathering cards in error. That only served to cement the bad impression. Hasbro execs have been quoted as saying that D&D is under-monetized and wanting to introduce recurrent spending like subscriptions, microtransactions, and the like. Anything you purchase on DnDBeyond is locked down. You can only use it on that platform. They also took away the ability to make a la carte purchases on DnDBeyond, like monsters and classes. They even attempted to make the 2014 rules unavailable on the site when the 2024 edition came out. They're still really a pain to get to. And Hasbro continues to drive DnDBeyond to the center of the game experience. More recently, WotC attempted to build a massive 3D virtual tabletop. A lot of us in the community saw this as another attempt to monopolize the hobby, but on top of that, it was built like a AAA video game and would have required a powerful gaming PC to use, so anybody running in a more affordable PC would have been out of luck, and God forbid you use a Mac. Not really customer friendly. I don't hate D&D, like I said, and I really believe that most of the folks at Wizards during this time really wanted to make the game great. But Hasbro pushed this agenda on them. Hasbro has made every effort over the last couple of years to maximize profits at our expense, and it's working. As much anger has come from the community, there are a lot of folks who don't know any of this happened or don't care. And so many players and DMs on either side of the debate feel locked in. I mean, if you bought physical books, maybe you're okay without being in WotC's ecosystem, but if you use DnDBeyond strictly, and tons of people do, the idea of switching to another system might require more effort and expense than you're prepared to take on. And that's when stage 3 begins. The stage where they really start to rake in the D&D cash. This is when web platforms like Amazon and Facebook began to put more demands on and increase costs for advertisers and sellers. At the same time, they filled our feeds and search results with stuff people paid to put there instead of the things we wanted to see. And this is the stage we're entering, or maybe have entered, with D&D. Hasbro has repeatedly looked to the video game industry for ways to fix the so-called under-monetization problem. And I'm not smart enough to make real predictions here, but I think it's impossible to look at how much money Hasbro has made with products like Monopoly Go and the massive success and goodwill generated by Larian Studios' Baldur's Gate 3 and not believe that Hasbro will keep trying to emulate the modern video game industry. Let me clarify that Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing and is most definitely not part of the problem. But at this point, I think Hasbro is only capable of learning the wrong lessons from it. I have no doubt that we'll see microtransactions, for example, VTT minis, more expensive subscriptions, and less flexibility on DnDBeyond in the near future. We will certainly see AI used more and more in the production of D&D material as a cost-saving measure. I'd be surprised if they didn't get rid of the free subscription and the ability to share your purchased content with other people. I ran across, honestly, a really random blog by this guy named Brian. Really, that's how he's listed, just Brian. He made some predictions about a year ago, and I don't know who he is or what kind of expertise he may or may not have, but his blog definitely got me thinking about what kind of things might really change. I'll link to the blog, but he mentions things like removing free access to homebrew content, maybe even removing some homebrew content altogether, the eventual phasing out of the 2014 rules, varying subscription tiers up to $15 a month. I actually think that prediction sounds a little low. Custom minis and tile sets for maps, which will have an additional cost, even though they're not making their own VTT. There's still other VTTs that D&D can be played on. I don't know how right Brian is, but I'd look for stage 3 to start ramping up sooner rather than later. And that'll be the final stage of Hasbro flushing D&D down the toilet. But it's not all bad. You can still have fun. In fact, you can just ignore all of this and keep on playing D&D as it continues on the road it's on. I know there are people out there who will disagree with me, but I think that is a valid choice. If you enjoy the game, keep playing it. But apart from that, if you don't want to participate in this whole system, there are still a ton of great ways you can have fun. If you already bought D&D books, just keep using those. I could be wrong, but I feel fairly certain that Hasbro will not send the Pinkertons to take away your physical 2014 monster manual. And if you want new material, you can always get it from the plethora of third-party publishers out there like Cobalt Press or MCDM or tons of others. Then you're not locked into the DnDBeyond system. There are even other online tools you can use, though frankly, none of them are as easy to use for like character creation, for example. You can also play another game. That's the beauty of the ecosystem the OGL created. There are so many TTRPGs available, and frankly, the industry only exploded more after the OGL scandal. Here are some of my favorites. If you dig swingy, crazy, deadly action and unpredictable magic, check out Dungeon Crawl Classics. If you're a fan of DCC's OSR sensibilities, but you want something that feels as modern as 5e, try Shadow Dark. If you want to try a very different system, but still want something challenging, unpredictable, and with a super cool aesthetic, grab a copy of Dragonbane. MCDM's Draw Steel gets rid of the swinginess, but keeps things crunchy in some really fun ways. And Critical Role's Daggerheart puts the focus on storytelling. All of these already have dedicated communities around them, so you won't have any trouble finding players. And sure, the cost of switching to a new system is real, but it will only get higher if you wait. If you're like a lot of us and you've already invested in a ton of 5e material, like me, you could always try to homebrew it into your new system of choice, or you could try another one of my favorite games, Nimble. It's fast, it's tactical, it's incredibly fun, and it has easy rules for converting any 5e content. Not to mention the creator is a cool dude. Thanks so much for watching, adventurers. I'd love to know what you think about the current state of D&D and about some of your other favorite games, so drop a comment down below. If you want more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And please consider supporting the channel by joining the Adventurers Guild at patreon.com/shortreststudios or by hitting the join button right under this video. If you're thinking about switching to a new system or just want to know about some of the other games out there, here's a playlist that'll show you how a bunch of other games compare to 5e. Check it out, and I'll see you next time on Short Rest Studios.